Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
It's Thursday,
Yes.
and for the first time in a while, and for the first time ever, actually we're going to be covering New Jersey home sales and the averages and the data that's coming in as of the June market. So we're obviously concluding July, so this is going to be dealing with the June market, right? We have some data that came in over the last week and a half.
Yes.
And we're going to be doing some questions about where the New Jersey real estate market is heading as far as like the developments, because it's a little bit, I'd say it's considerably different from Staten Island's market.
Yeah, I noticed a little bit.
A little bit of a difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's get into like some of the data points that I think we should suggest, like where the differences exist, because I do believe at this point New Jersey's housing market is actually doing a bit better than we are doing locally, and that's going to be impactful for a few reasons. We'll get into those details one by one. I think we definitely have some leading indicators that I think may play a role, but we're going to get into those questions one by one, and I think you have some questions that you're going to be asking me in the next. And if you haven't noticed outside, I mean, it's super hot out today, right?
Yeah. It's like 90.
You have it on your watch. What's the latest on the watch?
It says 91.
91. It's like the real estate market in New Jersey, extremely hot. So it's like that's always a big. Well, summer usually brings a little bit better movement in the real estate market, and this year is no stranger to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
I guess we'll
Yes.
jump right in, right?
Mm-hmm. Let's get into those questions.
Okay. I'm going to start with average days on market.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go in between. I left my glasses on my head today because I could switch back and forth, and I hate having glasses on when I'm doing these lives.
No.
But I will be going back and forth so I can actually read. It gets worse with time, unfortunately.
So, the average days on market has increased 45% year over year. What factors contributed to the increase of that?
Well, the big thing is, I think, what comes with any time you have days on the market increased by 45%. So last year at this time, again, much like Staten Island, in the Ocean and Monmouth County areas, we're all affected by rate increases that moved up substantially. So especially, and more particularly in the months of October through December, and then rates came down quite a bit and really picked up the market again. The market in both New York and New Jersey have really seen upticks based on the fact that interest rates are driving prices higher, and they're definitely moving prices based on interest rates quite substantially. So that is, the number one thing the increase is really indicating is that the Fed's rate increases, which is, I believe, somewhere last year was around 3.3, and now it's 3.25, and now they just raised it again at 5 and 5.25%, another 0.25% increase as of the last FOMC meeting. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Now, I keep saying this before, that interest rates are not indicative of interest rate, the Fed rate policy. It has some degree of factor, but it's really based on the 10-year Treasury. So the 10-year Treasuries really dictate the market in terms of the mortgage market, what's going to happen with the mortgages and things like that moving forward. Mm-hmm. So that's really what you see in there. So with the averages going up to a 45% increase, But I will say we have the month over month on that. I believe it's decreased substantially.
The month over month, in May it was 32, June 29, so that's a 9.38% decrease.
So, yeah, so that's, and so they have come down. So the data on the market have come down, and I believe they've been coming down. We don't actually have the official stat in front of us, but they've been coming down for the last quarter, developing a trend. So the trend line is definitely average days on the market has decreased over the last quarter. So I would definitely, again, this is something what the Fed I think is looking at, like if the rates were working, rate hikes were working. One of the things in the core inflation numbers are whether or not the housing portion of the interest rate metrics are contributing to inflation. So I do think they want to pause the real estate market. However, there are some contributing factors as to why. I mean, that's a big problem now. It's like, why is this happening? Why are we still seeing increases in prices? Why are we still seeing days on the market go down? Even though interest rates still appear to be hovering around the 7% mark. They hover in and out of there, 7%. And I will tell you right away that the market really will fluctuate based on the fact that the rate will jump the mortgage rate will jump a quarter point, or in one, either direction, over 7 or under 7, you could have a serious fluctuation in market activity and prices. So for the first time in a while, it's not typical to see in real estate, but you're seeing a much more volatile real estate marketplace. Prices can swing on a month-to-month or even a week-to-week basis at this point.
Yeah.
So what's that next question?
Yeah. Well, speaking of trends, new listings, they have decreased significantly in the past year.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
Okay. So people, again, this has been a thing where the new listings have basically consistently dropped based on the fact that we're seeing people basically locked into lower rates, not seeing the necessarily the need to move, and where will they move to based on the fact that even if they get their price, where do they go? So, I mean, these are contributing factors. So I do think at the end of the day, we're looking at like people really making a decision to stay put. So for the first time in a long time, this is one of the strangest real estate markets you'll ever find for many reasons. One of them being that it's what we call low volume, low inventory market. So even though inventories are substantially lower, so is buyer activity as a whole. And usually, typically, and prices have not really fallen. We're going to get into the prices here in a bit, because that's something New Jersey has simply defied. It has not really, it's done appreciably better than, especially, so just for the record, we're covering Monmouth and Ocean counties. Yes. So if anybody doesn't know that we're covering the Monmouth and Ocean County areas, we are covering that. So we're not talking about New Jersey as a whole, we're talking about Monmouth and Ocean, just to be on point with that. So the big thing is that we are seeing that consistent decrease in the amount of available listings, and that is playing a role into pricing, right? Which I think leads into our next question.
Yeah. Pricing for Jersey. Is the increase in pending average listings prices an indicator of future sale prices? I
do believe that it is indicative of future. So what we're looking at is this is on the pendings, correct? We're talking about the average on the pendings.
Yes.
So the average pending listing is showing. Okay, so we look at the what's going on in the market, and we see what's pending. So a pending is definitely a good leading indicator in this. So we like to look at pendings and say, well, are the pendings, the list price in comparison to the sale price, are we seeing an increase, or we're seeing this, and typically in decreasing markets as being a leading indicator, if prices are going down, you're going to look at these pendings and you're going to say to yourself, well, if the pendings are moving lower, basically what we're looking at is the market slowly starting to decelerate, which happened. So in that October to December block in New Jersey, in Monmouth and Ocean counties, they have dropped a little bit. So the prices were coming down, but have resumed their ascent upward even more so than our, where we currently base ourselves out of Staten Island. So it's really changed in that sense. So we are looking at pendings consistently moving up. This is again over the quarter. We're looking at this. So people are getting they're getting their numbers, but I do lay some caution here. There is some caution, and there are some headwinds with this, and I think we may be heading a second type of little bit of a downturn based on the Fed rate. And I think it will affect 10-year treasuries a bit. And that's something that we'll be paying attention to. Let's see what this Fed rate does overall. So as far as that pending, I think we're seeing, it's just showing that prices consistently seem to be elevating in the Monmouth and Ocean County areas.
It's up 4%.
It's up 4%, right?
Month
over month. So that's substantial. What is do we have the average sale there? Median average.
Median average.
Sale.
Where is it?
Yeah, sale, listing average sale right there.
Okay, for this month is $611,000.
Yes. So again, what was it? That's a 2% increase on the average sale month over month, right?
No.
Or for the year?
For the year over year.
So, okay, the difference, this is where we highlight the difference between Staten Island's market and New Jersey's market. Prices have been down, so the last report, year over year numbers, it's down about 2% here. It's up 2% in New Jersey, maybe a little appreciation to 3%. So we're seeing a reversal in what we typically see from the New York to New Jersey market. This is the first time I remember this actually happening, where usually it works concurrently. So as New York prices tend to go up, New Jersey prices tend to go up. We're seeing this in reverse, and the reason behind this, I believe, at the end of the day, is the push for suburban living is still on the increase. We were pre-COVID. I think people used to come in and say they didn't want to live in an urban, more like city life. The city life has kind of lost its luster over the last 3 years. People, whether it's safety or whatever it may be, as far as I'm not going to get into specifics on that stuff, but people are just not finding the cities to be the places that they want to spend their future in at the current moment. And I definitely think that it's showing the numbers. So people consistently keep pushing the boundaries further. And I think with telecommuting, or with at-home work, or hybrid office work,
Remote.
which they're trying to. So we'll see this dynamic play out, because if you've been watching a lot of reading the Wall Street Journal, things like that, the push to have employees back in the office is quite substantial now. So now companies in Manhattan, they're well, the hybrid office work just isn't working.
Yeah.
And I think when it started, I think the novelty, there was such a push for this. And then as the data kept coming in, productivity rates, I think one of them once said that productivity rates over the last year, based on the hybrid model, have really decreased. So it's not working as effectively as it was just past the pandemic, when people were forced to stay home. It was definitely and now it's kind of reversed itself. people don't want to commute more, and I think that that's a dilemma that's happening in a few places in Manhattan. So like a lot of the places, I mean, it was a big thing with like if you paid attention to the Google things and Google and Facebook were forcing employees to come in, they didn't want to come in. This is one of those dynamics that are consistently going to change. However, it will play into how the market affects them. We're seeing that it's still playing out here. I mean, in the prices. I mean, it just seems that suburban living and big spaces are more preferable to more urban settings, based on what we're seeing in the stats.
Well, yeah, and like speaking of that, I was wondering, what does the decrease in the sale to list price ratio from June 2022 indicate about buyer behavior or market competition right now?
Okay, so again, this is indicative of low. I mean, obviously we're seeing new listings come down. We're seeing the interesting thing, and you know, we could take like a small like sample size of a larger pool of what we experience, was we do sell houses in New Jersey, and what we kind of experience is that there's a lot of competition, but it's not what I call long competition. So meaning that the houses tend to get a big influx at the beginning, and like the pool of buyers isn't vastly large. So things taper off rather quickly, where in previous markets, you know, if it was considered to be an extremely hot market, you see a consistent showing basis, consistent showings, but you tend to get a lot up front, and if you don't hit that number quite quickly, it can decelerate the price of a house quickly. So we're starting to see that here, and you know, just go over that question one more time, because it was kind of multifaceted.
Yeah. So I asked, what does the decrease in the sale to list
Okay.
price ratio?
So let's get to the sale to list price ratio, which is the sale to list price ratio is, again, now this was, just to give you, in June, right? It was 104%.
Yes.
104%.
Oh, of last year.
Right, but so June of 2022 was 104. This year of June it's 101. So down
Yes,
to 2.9% over the year. But it was, just so you know, for a period, for a quarter like the quarter of the quarter 3 of 2022 saw that number of the sale to list price ratio in New Jersey, Monmouth and Ocean counties, dip below 100. I always use like 100% as being the barometer to say really hot, ridiculously hot, or something definitely unusual. I'm going to give you the unusual part, but you know, you don't really see, again, based on the volume, like this is not something that you like to see, as far as the volumes being down as low as they are, but you're still seeing sales to list price ratio moving upward. So yes, it's down 2% from the prior year. It is up from and to get a basis for from 94 and 95% of sale to which it was going to 96. I'm sorry, it was about 96, 97 in Monmouth and Ocean. It was about close to 95 here in Staten Island. So this is, while the year-over-year difference is notable at just over 2%. It's definitely on decline over the last quarter, and decline meaning when I start seeing the number creep up over 101, it's definitely something that I definitely see people bidding up on the houses over list price continuously. So for the people that are buying in New Jersey, the sales to list price ratio is over asking price as an average. So let's get that straight. If you think you're going to get, isn't it awesome? Not if you're buying, not if you're a millennial.
No, yeah.
It's not.
Not me.
You know, it's like, the big thing is like, it's hard. It's not that easy to kind of say it's gonna be easy for a house to see like a discount on the price when you go to buy it, even with today's increasing rates. That may change. That may change based on the latest from the Fed, but based on the inventories right now, I don't see it. I don't see it right now. I still think that they'll be continuously bidding. If the house is right, location, there may be some other factors that contribute to this decline. So we need to consider those as we look at data moving forward. So there'll be some things more intrinsic with the house that says it would get more than list price versus not getting. So little factors, locational based features, upgrades, things like that will start taking more hold if interest rates are starting to have an impact on price. And we're going to see that come over the next few months. So let's see what these interest rates are going to bring, and I think that's going to be the key here.
Yes.
And the sold median listings up 7.3%.
Sold medium, yes.
That's another notable stat.
Yeah, year over year, and month over month.
So the sold median listing price is over 7%. Jeez, so New Jersey's just absolutely scorching. It's a contrast to here.
Yeah.
That's a big contrast to here.
Even
though we've decreased medians, sale prices.
Yeah, I know.
We've decreased, and we've decreased here, and it's definitely something like it's working conversely, which is going to be interesting how that plays out with since we have such an influx. A lot of people from Staten Island move there as a natural, right?
Yeah.
So we get a lot of people moving to New Jersey. Affordability there, so people may be getting prices here and they're going to New Jersey and say, geez, the prices keep going up in New Jersey. Maybe my prices in Staten Island aren't going quite as high, so let's see what that's all about, right? So people they may delay some of their decision making. It could still be, but here's one stat that I didn't think we touched on, but I want to it's notable in here. And thanks to Jessica for putting this together.
Yes.
She did a good job. This is excellent.
Love Jess.
Yeah, just put these stats together for us. This is really very good. The pending listings, that's really an interesting thing. While the prices have increased, the one thing that's notable in this report is the decrease in the amount of pending listings. That means there's really an inventory squeeze second to none here. So that is notable. 14% year over year decrease in during the month. Properties that went on the contract during the month that's reduced. I'm not too sure if that's year over year or month over month, but that's
yeah, year over year is decreased 14.
Year over year, right?
Month over month decreased 5%.
So we're consistently seeing the squeeze play out. So 5% month over month, a total of 14. That's remarkable. Even sold listings are down 13% from last year. The amount of sold listings. So the market just continuously seems to want to tighten. This is something that will be discussed for many months to come. I don't think this is a lot of artificial money out there doing some really. There's some really. We'll get into I think that's toward the end.
Yes.
Well, we'll give my synopsis on stupidity.
No.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that. Because that's really when things really get interesting here.
Yes.
That's when the excitement, when you get me a little bit excited about talking about this stuff.
Insight.
Yeah, because this report's really. It's such an odd. This is odd. Nothing makes sense here. Just so you know, I'm gonna say for the record, it doesn't. When you talk about the prices going up and pending sales going down, it's just that's not a typical real estate market. And this is like year 18 for me, so it's not typical to see like that kind of. That's not a slide you usually slide down. It's the first time you slide an uphill slide. It's like, how does that happen? It does in this real estate market and just about everything else in life. If you want to make sense of it, it's a little bit difficult. It's a challenge. Let's say that. So, what's that next question?
Now, given the current trends, how might changes in mortgage rates or economic conditions affect the projections for the next 6 months?
Okay, so this is going to be an interesting time based on the Fed's increase in rates, because I do think there were some banks. We had talked about. I know in prior lives we've talked about banks failures and things like that, and depositors not having enough on. Like, this is going to seem to bring up. This may bring up a new challenge in terms of economies of scale. So, like, I do think that there is a substantial amount of corporate debt that's outstanding right now. So there's a lot of companies out there. I just read a report that it's at a historic high. So there's a lot of companies holding a lot of debt and then negative revenue. So you've seen a slew of things happen in the last few months. Retail's taken a beating, so retail's taken a beating. We just learned that obviously Staples closed stores around Staten Island. Staples.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Staples is gone.
No.
Yes.
Wow.
Staples is out of business.
That's so sad.
And we're seeing more and more of that in terms of big retail. Things like Target, Walmart suffering very badly. People's disposable income is really being impacted by this. How this plays out moving forward is going to be really interesting, because I do think the economic conditions, based on the fact that interest rates continuously rise, this is going to hit the credit card holders. And the United States currently is at its highest point in history with credit card debt. So again, this is going to be another knock on disposable income, which is going to translate. So, 75% of the U.S. economy is based on consumer spending. This is going to hit the pocketbooks bad, and that's going to translate into less sales, less profitability for companies, more layoffs. And the layoff thing has been limited to the tech sector and retail. So it consistently, and I think some people look at the unemployment rate and they say, oh geez, the unemployment rate is great. I think that's a misnomer. The labor participation rate is at historically one of the lowest points in the last 30 years. So there's a lot of people who are, they're out of the workforce, they're not looking for work. So they've gone past the 6 months of their unemployment, and they're falling off the radar, and people are touting like, oh, there's a great unemployment rate. When you have a labor participation rate which is somewhere around 63%, which is absolutely atrocious, it's bad. So you have a lot of people who are able-bodied not working.
Wow.
Yeah, of working age, they're fully capable of working, just not working. The consequences of this long term, we don't know. But it's definitely something that, when we talk about the future, with how this is going to play out and the economics of scale are going to play out, we're going to look at these layoffs in the future and say, is things going to actually get better for a while, or is this going to be like a slow? And it's really what the Fed wants, is a slow wind down to keep inflation under control. But again, I think that's where we'll lead. I'm going to lead the last part of this. This way I could just go off and go crazy here. Is that what, are we at the last one? I
have two more
questions.
Yeah.
All right.
My next question is, how does the current data compare to Staten Island?
Oh, okay. So we're looking at, again, a 2% decrease in prices on Staten Island as of the last report. We're looking at a 2% increase in average sale in Monmouth and Ocean counties. This continues. This is the anomaly that's not typical. So we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. It's definitely not the same as what you'd expect for a healthier real estate market. Not a healthier real estate market. I think it's healthy for the people who are selling and can afford to do so. That's what they're going to plan to do. But this piece we may run into a little bit of a stumble here because of so much of the equity position. Now you have to remember, just because the price have decreased in Staten Island, increased in New Jersey, it doesn't mean that our median sale price is considerably higher. But how long will that impact the market? Like, will that balance to kind of change? that's something that we need to watch, because a lot of the equity percentages that we talk about on Staten Island, if more of the percentages are going to offset the costs that are increasing in New Jersey, I do believe ultimately it's like running a tap of water in a very small tub. It's going to run out. So once that starts, and like you don't have an appreciation in home values, it can trickle down into the Monmouth Ocean County region, because of the fact that so much of the equity position that's being achieved here is being placed into the pricing increases that are happening over in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. So that's something we're going to have to watch. We're going to really have to watch that, because I think that's something that we need to pay attention to.
Interesting.
Yeah? You're just new to this.
I am.
Yeah! Wait till you do this for a while and you'll see how crazy it gets.
Yeah.
Hannah used to do these things. She used to be able to read these things so she used to be able to do this almost better than me. I mean, but you get to learn this stuff. You get to learn this stuff after a while, and you're like, oh, geez, something's wrong here. But it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't make sense from a lot of standpoints.
Yes.
So,
my last question. Mm-hmm. Were there any significant policy changes, infrastructure developments, or events in the past year that might have influenced the real estate market?
Yeah, stupidity. No, okay. Well, maybe. I do think that at the end of the day, the policies that have been in place, again, I think I've spoken about this a few dozen times already, about where I see like policy, Fed policy interfering with like what I call the macroeconomic understanding of what's taken place in the U.S. economy over the last 20 years, which is the U.S. economy is not producing the outputs that it used to achieve. And I do think that what's happening is the debt-based economy that we've kind of lived on since 2006, 2007, 2008, from the past financial crisis. We've developed a standard of our gross domestic product reliant on debt. Okay, so I do think that this is a divergence from what you typically raise interest rates for. And this is, in a way, yes, higher interest rates could bring on the kind of the bad economic policy of lack of understanding of it's just not safe to say what inflation is based on the fact of like what the country's producing, which is the GDP is not reflective of. So when you're talking about increase in money supply and you're talking about increase in GDP, what is that as a percentage? Is just being inflated dollars versus actual like real productivity. And I think what's happening is that there's a misunderstanding about what those numbers mean for the typical person, the lay person who just doesn't understand, like, when you talk about a macroeconomic environment, and you talk about how much debt is related to people's, not only how much we have outstanding, but, all the debt is doing is buying time for people who never had applied it. So it's like, if that, we look at fractional reserve lending as an example. We look at all these factors that we're not, and you hear a lot of things like about using like the 1978 approach to handling inflation, or 1980, when this is before your time, when things like Reaganomics existed, and like low inflation and try to bring inflation. We're not talking. This is a different paradigm. So if these type of correlations are so misguided that this has the potential to swing in a very precipitous way. So I think at the end of the day, I do think there's a lack of understanding about what these Fed rate changes mean, because if we continuously slide like this, and I hate to say this, I don't believe, and they're talking about, I talked about this whole CBDC thing. they abuse the currency. It's off the charts. I believe they literally, since COVID, tripled the amount of dollars that are in circulation. Tripled.
Wow.
In a span of 2 years, tripled. So you're talking about what it took 20 years to do was done in 3.
Wow.
This is the consequences we're in now, so we're suffering as a result of that. Now we're seeing this play out. But, you know, I hate to say this, it does help wealthiest Americans a lot more than the middle class. And it's, I mean, that's always an issue when you talk about inflated dollars, because you could just hold money in the bank and the interest rates go out. See, the funny thing is when you have money saved, you're developing interest and earnings. When you have money borrowed, you're falling faster. Mm-hmm. So the separation between the people who have the ability to save and the people who are so burdened by debt, their debt just keeps increasing and their wealth keeps increasing because they're holding higher interest rate products. So if they're making 5% or 4.5% on their savings, if you could afford to have them, if you could afford to have the savings, you're making 4%, then having a debt, massive debt, which is coming in at 20, it's like credit cards, 27%, Jesus. 28%. Yes, you could be saying Jesus in a little bit. Some people are going to be crying Jesus when they see their credit card bill next month.
Oh, God.
Because when that bill comes, when they do the, you know, FOMC, it's like when they do that, that's really when the Fed rates really matter. So you know you talk about interest rates on credit cards being 25% right now. I mean this change could bring it up to 27, 28, 29. It's almost usury. So remember, like I always tell people with debt, you're really borrowing against your time. So it means you're worth 25% less tomorrow because you got to work 25% more. If you have a 25% debt, people don't apply that. It's like if I want that thing and I pay it for it now, I got to work 25% harder to get rid of the same thing if I purchased it or waited. She's starting to think now.
Yeah,
Jeez, it's like, yeah, well, it weighs against your disposable income in ways that people, they don't really put into that perspective. So they love people who use their credit cards.
I love my credit card.
You do? Don't love it too much. You won't love it. You know, it's funny. Everybody says they love it, but because it gives you the now. But the buy now, pay later is a very costly endeavor. And I do think that once that you know we get to the shift, you know, 30%. That's 1/3 of your time. You have to develop 1/3 more effort to pay off a thing that if you waited to purchase today. So you got to think of borrowing as you're borrowing against your effort, and people don't realize that's what they're doing. So if they don't realize what they're doing, they're borrowing against their effort because obviously most people work. I mean, there's other factors involved, of course, but at the end of the day, they're borrowing against effort. So if you're gonna have to effort more at 30%, and most people, you know, can't achieve that on a very quick level. So I do think that the biggest problem we're going to see moving forward is they're talking about a second interest rate hike, which is going to put the basis points to 5.5%. It will, that I think will set I'm not even in agreement with this rate hike. I think they've gotten to the point now where they're not curing inflation. It's too far gone for them to think that they're going to solve it through the measures they're using now. So I do think that there's talk, and you're going to start hearing about the CBDC thing, because I do think at the end of the day, there's got to be there's more and more likely a push if this doesn't work at 5.5%, and we still start seeing some real economic pain develop, and they have to reverse course. And that's the same thing we did a segment where I talked about the knee-jerking thing, right?
Oh, yeah, the knee-jerk.
Yeah, these are knee-jerk decisions. And I think what happens is, once that paradigm, we go past a certain point, the Fed will usually snap back at 3 times faster rate to fix what they realize they made a mistake on. So what they're going to do is they're going to snap very quickly, and they're going to drop rates back to 2.25%, And by the time the economy recovers, then you create another inflationary cycle very quickly. And this is the types of things that have happened over the last, I'm going to be honest with you, since the Great Recession. These type of policies have been a problem because instead of doing things incrementally, they do things with a rapid type of, like, let's fix it in 10 seconds. And they make very drastic decisions, and then they try to draw down on the consequences, which they can't. It's just, these are the bad decisions. At the end of the day, these are bad decisions compounded by quick reactions. And I do think they did the pause. I think they're going to have to pause again. I don't think, if they do a 5.75, or 5.5% basis rate hike, I do think at the end of the day, you're going to see some real pain. And then it's not going to be, and then I believe at some point there's going to be a snapback on this, and it's coming. I just think that there's going to be a backlash to interest rate hikes because I don't believe that the situation based on GDP, based on what happens at the ground level, that you could consistently raise interest rates when you have so much of the U.S. economy based on debt. It's just not possible to continuously do this. But long-term prospects, we're going to have to look at this. Obviously, it'll be an election year, and obviously there'll be some crazy. If this next 2 years will be nuts. Get ready. Strap yourself in because this is going to be some wild times. If anybody doesn't think so, I've been around too long to know. This is definitely strange times, and they keep getting stranger. But so, like, to recap everything we kind of went over today, which is again, New Jersey's real estate market continues to appreciate even ahead of Staten Island's real estate market, and you should be advised to look at that. And look at these reports because if we're going to be doing them now, New Jersey will be part of our reporting structure. Yes. And you'll just keep getting better at it. It's just like it becomes a natural. But the big thing is that it's really we're going to see like what's going to happen with this next rate hike. I would reserve some caution to say that I don't think that where New Jersey's headed is sustainable. I'm going to say that off the bat. For long term, not in a bad way, but obviously there's a sell side, there's a buyer side. There's a balance, and I just think that the balance is once you find out that a shift happens, we're not sure where things are going to go as far as the New York real estate market's going to go moving forward. Not just the New Jersey real estate market because it's so dependent on New York to be part of that equation, and prices here have not seen the increase, especially over the last quarter that they have seen in New Jersey, in the Monmouth and Ocean County areas, Ocean County. And you could see all this stuff. You could see this report on our social media. Why don't you give them a rundown on our social media so that they could see this in the future?
Sure. So we have Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Pinterest, Nextdoor, LinkedIn.
Yeah. Just enjoy yourself. We're just about everywhere now.
Yeah.
It's at your front door, and you may see some of them still there. There may be some people at your front door, like Alana or Vic But some may be at your front door soon.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you have a question, if you have you're going to be thinking about selling, you're going to be thinking about what you should be doing, and where do we see things going, how to price things effectively, reach out, put a comment, make a suggestion, hit the notification bell on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to our channels because I do think as we get over time, we'll be more and more comprehensive about what we do here at Prodigy Real Estate, which is provide data, information, and sometimes some good entertainment, and that's always possible. Entertainment. So if you want to see entertainment, we definitely could be entertaining. Just take a look at some of the TikToks, and you'll see some.
Yeah. Look at her TikTok.
Yeah, I got a comment. I got a comment again on our our horoscope.
Oh, that was a good series we did.
It is, and I did. You know, somebody said that a couple of them they like the Gemini one a lot.
Gemini.
Yes, I don't know why. I got a comment that Gemini was spot on. But we'll see. You can see that on TikTok and let us know.
Out,
yeah, or one of our other silly little segments.
Yes.
Or you could see you guys dancing somehow. Taylor Swift or something like that,
yes.
right?
We're Swifties here.
Well, we have a couple of Swifties.
Not all of us.
Not all of us. Definitely not. Definitely not. But I'm going to implement in dictatorship form a ban on Taylor Swift.
A ban?
No.
No.
No Taylor Swift. No. Well,
No.
I have to, believe me, I have to deal with all the musical choices that are in the office.
They're good.
I'm outnumbered.
They're good.
So anyway. You have a great Thursday evening. Enjoy this hot weather. Hopefully.
Yes.
You are enjoying it's been a pretty decent summer. Huh?
It was raining a lot a couple weeks ago, but now I think it's
It poured yesterday,
stopped.
right?
Yeah, while we were here.
Yeah.
It was raining.
I know. It took a whole
That was
week.
crazy.
It took a whole 3 hours out of the schedule just to look at the rain. No. Anyway, let's stop there. You have a great day. We'll see you soon. And till next time,
Yes.
right? We'll see you from Prodigy Real Estate.
Yes.
Ciao.
Bye, guys.